At first, Maya saw him as a mentor, someone who could be trusted. But one rainy evening after prayer service, something happened that Maya never imagined. That night marked the beginning of a secret that would later destroy her world. Weeks passed and Maya noticed she was feeling weak and tired. She thought it was just exhaustion until one morning she vomited so much that her mother took her to the hospital. The hospital nurse's face changed after checking her. "She is pregnant," the nurse said quietly. The words hit Maya like thunder. Her mother's mouth hung open in shock. "Pregnant at 16. Who is responsible?" she shouted. When Maya mentioned the name of the youth leader, her mother's eyes widened in anger and disbelief. It was a scandal waiting to happen. If the congregation found out, their lives would never be the same. So instead of protecting her daughter, Maya's mother made a decision that broke her heart. She told Maya to pack her things. "You will go to my aunt's house in the village," she said coldly. "But Mama, please, no, please," Maya begged. "You will not disgrace me here," her mother said firmly. That night, Maya sat on her small bed, tears streaming down her face. She was only 16. She didn't know what motherhood meant. She didn't know what the future held. All she knew was that her life had just taken a turn she could never reverse. As the bus moved out of town the next morning, Maya looked out of the window holding her small bag. With fear in her eyes, she didn't know that she was about to face suffering she had never imagined. When Maya arrived at her great-aunt's home, the place felt like another world. The air was fresh, but the silence was heavy. She had never lived in such a remote place before. She imagined it would be peaceful. But life there was nothing like she had hoped. Her great-aunt, Aunt Ruth, was not her grandmother's real sister. She was a distant relative who had agreed to take Maya in. And she didn't hide the fact that she didn't like Maya. "So you are the girl who got pregnant," Aunt Ruth said with a voice very sharp. Maya's heart sank. She thought maybe she would at least find some comfort here. But instead, she was greeted with judgment. From that first day, Maya was treated like a servant. She woke up before sunrise to fetch water from the distant well. She cooked, swept the yard, washed clothes, and even worked in the garden with a pregnancy that was growing bigger every day. Sometimes she would feel dizzy from the heat and the heavy load on her head. But Aunt Ruth would say, "Pregnancy is not a sickness. You better work if you want to eat." The people in the small community whispered whenever she walked past. "That's the girl who brought shame to her family," some said. Others simply stared, their eyes filled with pity or scorn. One night she sat outside looking at the stars, wondering how her life had gone so wrong so fast. She missed school. She missed her friends. She missed her mother's face. Even though her mother had sent her away, she placed her hands on her big belly and whispered, "Don't worry, my baby. I will protect you." But she didn't know that protecting her baby would mean enduring things that she never thought she could endure. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, and then one hot afternoon, Maya began to feel sharp pains in her stomach. She knew that time had come, but giving birth under such conditions would be an experience that would test every bit of her strength. It was a scorching afternoon when the pain began. At first, Maya thought it was just the usual discomfort she felt, but within minutes the pain became stronger, sharper, and more frequent. She was alone in the small kitchen preparing food when she suddenly doubled over, holding her stomach. "Ah!" Maya cried out. Aunt Ruth rushed in, frowning. "What is it?" she asked. "I think the baby is coming," Maya said, sweat rolling down her face. Without showing much concern, Aunt Ruth said, Let's go. We must walk to the midwife's house before it gets worse." Maya could barely stand, but she followed. Each step on the dusty road felt like walking through fire. People stopped to stare as she held her stomach and groaned in pain. Some whispered, others pointed, but no one offered to help. By the time they reached the midwife's house, Maya was shaking. The midwife, Mrs. Sarah, quickly led her inside. The air smelled of herbs and smoke. There was no bed, just a thin mat on the floor. "Lie down, my child," Mrs. Sarah said. The contractions came harder. Sweat soaked her dress. She bit her lip to keep from crying too loudly. Hours passed like days. Mrs. Sarah whispered prayers, urging her to push. Finally, just as the evening sun was fading, a baby's cry filled the room. "It's a girl," Mrs. Sarah said, lifting the tiny child and placing her on Maya's chest. Tears rolled down Maya's face. For a moment, all the pain faded. She stared at her daughter's small, wrinkled face and felt a rush of love she had never known before. But outside that little house, life was still waiting with its harsh realities. And Maya had no idea that the struggles of raising this child would be far greater than the pain of bringing her into the world. The first night with the baby was the longest Maya had ever lived. The little girl cried and cried, her tiny fists waving in the air. Maya didn't know how to calm her. She didn't know what to do. She tried rocking her. She tried singing softly, but nothing worked for long. And Aunt Ruth wasn't willing to help her. By morning, Maya's eyes were swollen from lack of sleep. She had no breast milk yet, and Aunt Ruth handed her a small bowl of watery porridge. "Feed her with this. That's what we used in the old days," Aunt Ruth said. Maya obeyed, holding her baby gently and feeding her with a small spoon. The porridge dribbled down the baby's chin. She was so small, so fragile. Maya worried every second that something might happen to her. Life didn't slow down for Maya just because she had a child. By the next day, Aunt Ruth was already sending her to fetch water, sweep the compound, and help in the garden. The baby would be strapped to her back, sleeping or crying, while Maya bent over planting seedlings. At night, Maya would sit under the moonlight, staring at her daughter. She had named her baby Hope. Each time she whispered the name, her heart felt heavy with both love and fear. But the community was not kind. Some women would pass by and mutter, "Look at her. Such a small girl with a baby. No shame." Others laughed openly, calling her the preacher's disgrace. Maya pretended not to hear, but deep inside their words stabbed her like a knife. She wanted to shout that she didn't choose this life, that she was only trying to survive. But no one cared about the truth. One afternoon while working in the garden, Maya looked up at the blue sky and made a silent promise to her baby Hope. "I will protect you. I will do everything to give you a better life than this." She didn't know how she would keep that promise. She had no money, no family to turn to, and no real skills to earn a living. But what she didn't know was that the days ahead would test her in ways she could never imagine. And that keeping her daughter alive would be the hardest battle she would ever fight. Life with a newborn baby in Aunt Ruth's house was like walking in the rain without an umbrella. Cold, hard, and uncomfortable. Maya quickly learned that if she didn't work, she and Hope would not eat. Every morning, she strapped Hope to her back and went out in search of any job she could find. Sometimes she helped women in the market arrange their goods for a few coins. Other times, she fetched water for those who were too tired to go to the well. The work was hard and the pay was so small that she could barely buy food. But Maya kept going because there was no other choice. When she walked in the market, Hope would sometimes cry and people would complain. "Tell your baby to keep quiet. She's disturbing my customers," a vendor once shouted. Maya apologized and walked away, her heart sinking. At night, Aunt Ruth's voice would echo in her ears. "You think you came here to rest? Tomorrow you will follow me to the garden." Even though Maya's body ached, she dared not argue. Her hands soon became rough from carrying firewood and working in the garden. The soles of her feet hardened from walking barefoot on the hot ground. The only soft thing in her life was Hope's small warm body when she held her close at night. But even in those quiet moments, Maya worried. How long could she keep living like this? How long before her body gave up? One day she overheard two women talking in the market. "They say the preacher's family is pretending nothing happened. The girl is suffering out there but nobody cares." Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. She wished she could scream, but instead she walked away with her head down. She didn't know that fate had another test waiting for her. One that would shatter her heart in ways she could never repair. It started with a small cough. Maya didn't think much of it at first. Babies cough sometimes. She wrapped Hope in a warm cloth and sang softly to her. But as the days passed, the cough grew worse. Hope's tiny chest rose and fell quickly, as if breathing had become hard work. She refused to eat, and her once bright eyes began to lose their shine. Maya panicked. She ran to Aunt Ruth. "Please. Hope is sick. We need to take her to the clinic." Aunt Ruth frowned. "Clinic? Do you think money grows on trees? Give her some herbs. She will be fine." That night, Maya stayed awake watching her baby struggle to breathe. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered prayers into the darkness. The next morning, Maya borrowed some money from a woman in the market and rushed Hope to the local clinic. The nurse looked at the baby and shook her head slowly. "This child needs proper treatment. Her lungs are weak and we don't have the equipment here." Maya felt her knees weakening. She didn't have the money to go to a bigger hospital. She begged the nurse to do something, anything. The nurse gave her some medicine and told her to keep the baby warm. For a short while, Hope seemed to get better. Maya smiled for the first time in weeks, thinking the worst was over. But in the middle of the night, Hope's breathing became shallow. Maya called her name over and over, shaking her gently. There was no answer. The world stood still. The only sound was Maya's own scream as she clutched her lifeless baby to her chest. In that moment, Maya felt as though the earth had swallowed all the light in her life. But she didn't know that her greatest battle was still ahead. Learning how to live with the pain. The morning of the burial was cold and cloudy, as if the sky itself felt Maya's pain. Hope's little body was wrapped in a small white cloth, the kind used for newborn blessings. Only this time, it was for goodbye. The women in Aunt Ruth's compound stood around whispering to each other. Some pitied Maya while others blamed her. If she had stayed at home with her parents, maybe the baby would still be alive, one woman said. Another shook her head. At 17, what does she know about being a mother? Maya heard them, but their words passed through her like wind. She could only stare at the white cloth in her arms. The burial ground was a small patch of earth at the edge of the community. No coffin, no ceremony, just a shallow grave dug by two young men. Maya knelt beside it, her tears soaking the cloth. "My baby, my hope, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. When it was time to lower the little bundle into the ground, Maya's hands trembled. She wanted to hold her baby one last time, but Aunt Ruth gently pulled her back. "Let go. Let her rest," she said. As the first handful of sand hit the white cloth, Maya's chest tightened. It felt like each grain was burying a piece of her heart. By the time the grave was covered, Maya felt empty, like her soul had been taken along with her baby. She walked back to the house slowly, not hearing the voices around her, not feeling the ground under her feet. That night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every sound reminded her of baby Hope. The soft breathing she used to hear beside her. The tiny cry at dawn. Now there was only silence. It was a kind of silence that didn't just fill a room. It filled a life. After Hope's burial, Maya moved through life like a shadow. She still lived in Aunt Ruth's house, but it was as if she was no longer there. She stopped talking to people. Even when Aunt Ruth asked her to do chores, she would work in silence, eyes fixed on the ground. She no longer went to the market or joined the other women. Sometimes she would sit under the tree for hours holding the small blanket Hope used to sleep in. She pressed it to her face, hoping to catch a faint smell of her baby's skin, but the scent had faded, just like her reason to smile. At night, she barely ate. Food lost its taste. She only drank water when her lips got dry. Sleep didn't come easily. Whenever she closed her eyes, she saw the little white cloth going into the ground. Weeks passed. Aunt Ruth was running out of patience with her. Maya, you better stand up and do some work. Are you the first person to lose a child? I have had enough of this. Maya didn't reply. She wanted to tell her that her life had ended the day Hope's heart stopped beating, but the words got stuck in her throat. In her mind, she replayed everything that had gone wrong. From the day the youth leader violated her trust, to the day the pregnancy started, to the moment she was sent away from her mother's house. She blamed herself for everything. Sometimes the pain was so heavy she wished she could disappear completely. But each morning she still woke up. Each morning she still breathed. The days bled into each other. One long stretch of silence, sadness, and shadows. But deep inside, a tiny part of her still hoped that maybe, just maybe, life could change again. It was a quiet afternoon. The sun was high and the road outside Aunt Ruth's compound was empty. Maya was sitting under the tree again, lost in her thoughts when she heard a knock on the wooden gate. Maya, go and check who is there, Aunt Ruth called from inside. Maya dragged herself to the gate and opened it halfway. Standing outside was a young woman she had never seen before. She wore a simple dress and blouse. In her hands was a small bag. Good afternoon, the woman said with a smile. I'm looking for Aunt Ruth. Maya nodded and let her in. Inside, the woman greeted Aunt Ruth warmly and handed her the bag. I brought some vegetables and oil from my garden. As the two women talked, the visitor kept glancing at Maya. Finally, she asked softly, who is this beautiful young girl? This is my great-niece, Aunt Ruth replied. She is staying with me for now. The woman turned fully to Maya and smiled again. My name is Grace. I teach sewing at the Women's Skills Center nearby. You look like someone who could learn quickly. Would you like to come and join our class? Maya froze. She hadn't heard such a question in a long time. A part of her wanted to say no immediately. What was the point? But another part, the tiny part of her that still hoped for change, whispered, maybe this could be something different. Before she could answer, Aunt Ruth spoke up. I think that's a good idea. Maya has been idle for too long. You should go. It will keep your mind busy. Maya just nodded slowly. She wasn't sure if she had the strength, but something about Grace's warm smile made her feel a small spark inside. For the first time in months, she wondered what tomorrow might bring. Maya's first day at the sewing class was different from anything she had experienced in a long time. The room smelled of fresh fabric and creativity. At first, Maya's hands trembled as she tried to hold the scissors and cut the cloth, but Grace was patient, showing her how to measure, mark, and sew straight lines. Day by day, Maya began to enjoy the work. The pieces of fabric slowly turned into skirts, blouses, and beautiful garments under her hands. But while Maya was building a new skill, something else was happening back in her hometown. The youth leader, the man who had deceived and taken advantage of her, could no longer bear the weight of his secrets. His guilt grew heavier each day. And one Sunday, in the middle of service, he broke down in tears before the congregation. I have sinned, he confessed, his voice shaking. I wronged Maya. I made her carry the shame that was mine to bear. The congregation was silent at first, then filled with murmurs of shock. Maya's mother, who was sitting in the front row, felt as though the ground had opened under her feet. For the first time, she realized the full truth of what her daughter had endured. Tears streamed down her face as she left the service and later traveled to find Maya. She knelt before her, weeping. Maya, my child, I am so sorry. I failed you. I believed lies instead of believing you. Please forgive me. Maya felt a storm of emotions rise within her. The pain, the betrayal, the longing for her mother's love. Slowly, she reached out and lifted her mother from the ground. I forgive you, Mama, but I must continue my life here. I am learning to sew and I want to make something of myself. Back in town, the church leaders removed the youth leader from his position. His reputation was ruined and he faced the consequences of his actions. As months passed, Maya grew from a timid, wounded girl into a confident young woman. Her hands became skilled, her designs unique, and soon she was known as one of the best seamstresses in the area. And eventually, she went back to school. People traveled from different places to have her make their clothes. She had turned her pain into purpose. Believing lies without hearing both sides can destroy relationships. Always seek the truth before making judgments. Forgiveness frees the heart, but it does not mean returning to the same place of pain. Skills and hard work can turn your life around, no matter your past. Those in positions of trust must be held accountable, no matter how respected they seem. A parent's support and belief in their child can make all the difference during hard times. Pain can be a stepping stone to a brighter future when you refuse to give up. Your past does not define you. Your choices today do.